Thank you. So we have a super busy meeting, exciting meeting this evening. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with a proclamation. It's not listed on your agendas, but
No, it's on the top. It's on the top of the agenda.
oh, is it on the tippity top? It's on the very
Yep.
tippity top
Tippity
of the
top.
agenda. Thank you. And this is a proclamation for 2020 Public Health Thank You Day. So whereas the American Public Health Association has nationally proclaimed November 23rd, 2020 as Public Health Thank You Day. And whereas this provides the town of Rocky Hill an opportunity to recognize healthcare workers who labor tirelessly every day to make our community safer and healthier. By it, tracking infectious disease outbreaks, mass influenza vaccinations, preparing for natural disasters, or assuring safe food and drinking water. And whereas the town of Rocky Hill, together with its neighboring towns of Berlin, Newington, and Wethersfield, receive high-quality public health services through its regional health department, the Central Connecticut Health District, now in its 25th year of service. And whereas the Director of Health and his staff have provided extraordinary assistance to town leadership, municipal departments, first responders, our school districts, local businesses, and the public in navigating the COVID-19 pandemic. And whereas this special day also provides us an opportunity to thank them, not only for what they do, but for the dedication, commitment, skills, and empathy they bring to these efforts. Now, therefore, I, Lisa J. Murata, do hereby proclaim November 23rd, 2020 as Public Health Thank You Day in Rocky Hill, Connecticut, and I encourage all residents and citizens to join me in this celebration and acknowledging the critical role our public healthcare workers play in prevention and in helping our community to achieve and maintain good health, particularly during this extraordinary and challenging time. So thank you all very much. We have 3 members from CCHD here tonight with us, and we are just so extremely grateful for everything that you do for us and the meetings that you come to and how you explain everything simply and make us feel assured during this tremendous time of uncertainty. So thank you very, very much. And congratulations.
Okay, Lisa, if I could just say a couple of words as your board member. I'm on the call here with us is our community health coordinator, Louis Pentage, and my apologies, Louis. And we had expected one of our sanitarians to join us too, who works extensively in the town, but she's not come on board. And I'm one of your three board members that are appointed to the Board of Health by the town. Our other 2 board members, Marty Stiglitz and Barbara Gilbert, were not able to join us this evening, but I do want to thank you on behalf of the board and behalf of the department. And I do want to say our staff are really exceptional. Our Director of Health and staff, I've worked in public health now almost 50 years, and I've been on the Board of Health here many years. And I have to tell you, we really do have an extremely talented, skilled, dedicated group of staff. I mean, it's one of those situations where they're the right people in the right place at the right time. And I think the kind of service Rocky Hill and our other towns are getting, I think, is a real testament to that, and their enthusiasm. And and the other thing I do want to point out to the town council members is we have an unusual situation where these staff members work across programs. They may be a health educator, they may be a sanitarian, but they work across to help one another, particularly where different events or times of stress occur. And I think those of you that attended our recent mass flu drive-through clinics that we held in each of our towns was a testament to that, where we had staff from across the department helping at different times. So they really, and this is really something to be commended and such on that. Louis, do you want to say a couple of words?
Sure. Thank you so much, guys. As a public health official, we're used to working in the background. So we're not so used to being out in the open and doing this. So this is definitely an experience for us. And we're just grateful to be included in the conversation. Behind the scenes work doesn't really get much appreciation. So, when things go bad, it's nice to actually be included in the conversation and be like, why is it going bad and how are we doing? So definitely appreciate talking with all of you. I appreciate every single meeting that we have, and you guys are very responsive, and you take the effort to educate yourselves every day. So it's definitely nice to see. So thank you guys. I really appreciate it.
That's great. And if we could just make just a last pitch to those who are watching at home, it really, really is critical that people take the time to follow the guidance that we've been providing during this epidemic. Things are getting worse. We went from a yellow to a red alert this past week, and had a record number of new cases reported on Monday today. And it's really, it's a serious situation. So we really need to have people to be very careful, really take a look at what they're doing, what's necessary, what's not necessary here in the town, in the workplace, at school and such. And people do the things, the basic things that we know we can do. Our vaccines are being announced, but they're still going to be months off before they're made available to the general public. So in the meantime, you have an ability to deal with the situation. Wear a mask, wash hands, watch distance, try to cut down on the gatherings and such. So thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. And thank you, Judy and Louis, for attending. We're happy to honor you this evening and everyone that you work with. And of course, Charlie Brown, who isn't with us tonight, but we just saw him in the last meeting. And we look forward to celebrating your special day on the 23rd. Thank you for attending. Okay. Moving along, we are also honored this evening to have Commissioner Sadi from the Department of Veteran Affairs with us here this evening, who is going to make a presentation. Welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Mayor Murata, and I hope you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, we can.
Great. Well, Madam Mayor and Town Manager Mayor, honorable members of the council, public safety officials, guests, and others who are watching this, thank you for allowing me this opportunity to recognize some of the public safety officials and their teams in the town of Rocky Hill. I thank you all for what you do. Public service is a calling. Whether you are volunteers, or whether you're paid, you are all answering a calling. And I know that personally. I spent 20 years as a member of the Danbury City Council, stepped down about 2.5 years ago as part of my becoming commissioner. I know the hard work that you do, and it's been a pleasure to be able to meet many of you and join with you, particularly this past Veterans Day at the ceremony, which was very moving. I thank you for including me in that, as well as some of our veteran residents from our Rocky Hill facility joined as well. I also want to thank all of you, the town of Rocky Hill, over the years, or literally over the decades, for all the support of the Department of Veterans Affairs, particularly highlighted during the challenges that we see now with this health pandemic. And while everyone works hard in this, I want to take the opportunity this evening to recognize, as you're doing with the healthcare workers, to recognize those in public safety and first responders who are on the front lines in the town of Rocky Hill, beyond that, and assisting us at the Department of Veterans Affairs. And it goes beyond the pandemic. It's with stand down, it's with so many activities, whether they are emergency calls, routine calls, or helping us with our programs and services. Truly appreciate that. And so I'm going to present virtually, and I'm someone who has a difficult time with all of the virtual platforms because I like to be in person. However, as another speaker said, we must follow the rules, the regulations, the healthcare directives, because this is real. I have staff who are testing positive. We have uptick within the veterans community across the state of Connecticut and in the region. I discussed that with Director Montoya from Federal VA. So folks, I tell my staff each and every day, be smart and be careful. And doing those two things will keep you safe, keep your family members, your coworkers, and those the people you serve safe. So with that, I want to take the opportunity. The first certificate I have is to present virtually to Chief Custer. Certificate of appreciation. I'll hold this up after I read it. Presented to the Rocky Hill Police Department for dedication and continued support of the Department of Veterans Affairs, whether responding to emergency or routine calls or supporting veteran outreach events such as Stand Out. The officers of the Rocky Hill Police Department have been unwavering in helping to keep our veterans safe throughout the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for your service. Signed the 16th day of November, 2020. So I'll hold that up there.
Congratulations.
Chief, thank you very much. And it was a pleasure to meet with you the other day. I appreciate all that you're doing and your team. To the Rocky Hill Fire Department, and that is to Chief Michael Garahy. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yes, you did.
Okay. Chief Garahy, and you know, sometimes us elected officials or appointed officials are not the great at changing the text of these proclamations when it's for similar service, but even though the language is very similar, it's because the service is similar. What I mean by that, it's that dedication to public safety and serving others. So a certificate of appreciation presented to the Rocky Hill Fire Department, again, for dedication and continued support of the Department of Veterans Affairs, again, responding to emergency and routine calls. Sometimes there are quite a few of those, and we understand that and appreciate you being there and supporting Stand Down. The members of the Rocky Hill Fire Department have been truly unwavering in helping to keep our veterans and the community safe, including throughout the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you for your service. Presented the 16th day of November, 2020.
Congratulations.
Thank you
And
very
then to the Rocky Hill Volunteer Ambulance Department, and that's Chief Joe Graham, correct?
Correct, sir.
All right, Chief, again, this is sort of the third pillar or leg that keeps all of the public safety functioning and supporting our veterans and the community at large. A certificate of appreciation from the department to the Rocky Hill Volunteer Ambulance Association. Again, for dedicated service and support to the Department of Veterans Affairs, you're responding to emergency and routine calls, supporting our outreach events. The members of the Volunteer Ambulance Association have been unwavering in helping to keep our veterans safe through the challenges of this COVID-19 pandemic. Thank you very much. Presented 16th day of November, 2020. Gentlemen, I thank you, the men and women of the departments and the association for all that they do to keep us safe. And I often say, and I'll end with this, as a member of the Army Reserve, we refer to ourselves as green suiters. And while my brothers and sisters, some of which are downrange now, keep our nation safe and keep our country safe, you, public safety, first responders, are the ones 24/7 who are out there keeping us safe at home. So you're keeping those men and women who are overseas, their families safe at home, whether it's in Rocky Hill, in Connecticut, or your brothers and sisters around the country. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. I thank all of you for this opportunity. And I wish you all very best for a successful meeting and success in keeping your constituents and your residents safe as we get through this pandemic. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Commissioner. And congratulations, everyone, once again.
Thank you.
Okay. Happy meeting today. Let's move on to public comments. So this portion of the meeting is specifically set aside for comments from the public, who are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. Any person interested in providing public comment should email publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov. You will be provided with a link to attend the Zoom remote meeting and instructions on how you will participate. So I'm looking at my chat. I may have someone in the queue. Let's see. No one in the queue, but I believe we have some written comments. And
Mayor, I do have one written for you.
okay,
You
why don't
ready?
why don't you go ahead first then, Councilor Sharma?
Sure. Comment originally submitted at Public Safety to be read at council. Krista Mariner, 58 Farms Village Road, Rocky Hill. Krista writes, the question below were submitted to the Public Safety Committee meeting tonight, but were not asked because of time constraints. Since the CCHD will be part of the town council meeting tonight, here's my questions for the CCHD representative. First, what are current counts for Rocky Hill, including fatalities? Second, Rocky Hill is now a red alert town, as is 80% of Connecticut. DPH has specific guidelines. What do you recommend for Rocky Hill, including but not limited to a code red phone call and or the municipal option to revert back to stage 2? In my opinion, a town-by-town approach is not sustainable as it puts too much responsibility on the municipalities. Third, Connecticut had 10,520 new cases in just 1 week. What are the contributing factors to these high numbers? Fourth, is the CCHD going to have any pop-up testing in their town meetings to meet the demand for increased testing? Last week, I had to wait in line for 2 hours. 2 hours at the Hartford Healthcare testing site in Newington. According to the DPH guidelines and the separate notification that I received from the state regarding the public health alert in Rocky Hill, testing is recommended for everyone in red alert towns, regardless of symptoms. Do you concur? Thank you for your help, Krista Mariner. So I will be forwarding the specific questions on to Charlie, and as in the past, we can address them directly to her, if not at the next public safety meeting, but we did read them in as comment.
Sorry. Thank you, Ms. Mariner, and thank you, Councilor Sharma. I too have a communication from a town resident, which I will read into the record now. To the town council members, recently we lost a very dedicated resident who exemplified the very best of a man. Former Mayor Joseph Kohanek was an individual all could look up to. He believed in family, God, and was dedicated to public service for Rocky Hill. He volunteered in the fire department for 38 years and was chief for 11 years. He served on several town council, president of the Historical Society, and helped create the Rocky Hill Fire Department Museum. As mayor, he strongly supported the referendum for the expansion of the Rocky Hill Community Senior Center and the design of the new building. At the recent Beam ceremony, Mayor Lisa Murata stated that she dedicated today's ceremony in memory of Chief Kohanek. Joe exemplified the heart of community spirit, and I know he would be very proud to be here with us today. I could not agree with the mayor more. Therefore, I would like to recommend that the new center be named in his honor, the Joseph Kohanek Community and Senior Center. This would be a perfect living memorial to a man who truly deserves it. Sincerely, Karen Plaza, 146 Gilbert Avenue. Thank you, Ms. Plaza. I'm sorry, I'm just reading. I'm getting another email for public comment, but I think this person already, I think Mr. Sharma already read this person's. So I'm not going to read that one. Okay. So that concludes public comment. Moving along. Quickly to appointments and resignations. I would like to appoint Geraldine Yu to the library board. Thank you, Ms. Yu, for your commitment to joining that. And Councilor Duff, I understand you have an appointment?
We do, yeah. We had an opening of a regular member on the Planning and Zoning Committee after Phil Silvestro stepped down. So we'll actually be making two moves. Ron Robbins, who's a current alternate, will become a regular member. And we will be appointing a new alternate, which will be Nancy Brescia.
Wonderful. So thank you, Mr. Robbins and Ms. Brescia, for your service to the town. And before we move on to our presentation, approval of the minutes, Town Council meeting, October 19th, 2020, the minutes which you have in your packet. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the October 19th meeting.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful.
Madam Mayor, I'd also like to make a motion to move item 9A up ahead of the subcommittee reports on our agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Wonderful, thank you. So we now have a presentation on multi-generational programs and intergenerational communities. We are honored to have with us this evening the Executive Director of the Commission on Women, Children, and Seniors, Attorney Stephen Hernandez. And also from that commission, we have the pleasure of Mr. Michael Warner. So welcome, gentlemen, and we're very delighted to have you. As you can see, there's a lot of talk about our Senior and Community Center, and I know that you are both there at the beam ceremony. I thank you for your presence there as well.
Thank you so much, Madam Mayor, and thank you so much to the esteemed council for having us tonight. You know, your invitation a few weeks ago now, it's actually a couple months ago now, to the opening of the center, you introduced the notion of the center as a result of your understanding and really deep dive into what we call 2Gen in the state of Connecticut. It's really multi-gen, but it's an initiative. I'll give you a little bit of the background of the initiative because it really does tell a story about where I think the town of Rocky Hill is going with this innovation in its senior and community center. So about 6 years ago now, the state of Connecticut joined what is a national effort in really reorganizing the way that we serve and the way that we empower families and community. And the notion then, as is the notion now, is that the family is the center of gravity of a community, that the family is the center of gravity for economic success, for individual success, and families can look very different one from the other, but the notion of those shared values and working towards something that is greater than the individual as a family unit was really the core of the initiative that started under the previous administration at the federal level and continued during this past administration, has continued. So 2Gen really was this notion that if you put the family at the center, everything else should wrap around it. Whether you're talking about services, opportunities, the way that we think of the future of our towns and our communities, really the family at the center became a metaphor for how it is that we do business as government as well. So if you think about a family that functions ideally, and we'll think of the metaphorical family as one that shares resources between generations, one that communicates opportunity between members of the family, one that finds efficiencies in the way that it operates and really tries to find the best practices in how it is that it does what it does to succeed. And you take that metaphor and then you project it onto how it is we work of governing and government. Then what you find is that there are opportunities for government infrastructures to be nimble, to really go to families where they are and community where they are, and also find efficiencies that happen when you put community at the center and wrap all infrastructure around it. So let me give you some examples of how 2Gen has manifested itself in other parts of the country. I'll give you the example of Nashville, Tennessee. Nashville, Tennessee was and Tennessee more generally was one of the early adopters of the multi-generational success strategy. And what they did is they linked local business with local community colleges, because what they found was that they were having trouble helping families lift themselves sustainably out of poverty because the infrastructure of the educational system and the infrastructures of workforce really weren't communicating with each other. So what they did is that they created intentional lines of communication between young families that wanted to improve their situation and local community colleges, and partnered with companies that were based in Tennessee. And they were able to find opportune ways to serve families, but also help individuals lift their families out of poverty. And that was critical. Another example was in literacy. Literacy, as we know, is a skill that must be taught intentionally. But one thing that we found is that young people weren't learning the critical skills of learning how to read. One data point that was interesting was that the reading attainment of a mother, and this was what was curious, the reading attainment of the mother in a family determined whether or not a child was going to be successful in literacy. So we tried to decompress that, kind of figure out why that was the case. And what we learned in the science of teaching reading was that reading was a multi-generational skill that was passed from one generation to the other through the love of storytelling, the love of sharing all of those hallmarks of family from one generation to another that sparked the curiosity to learn more and to seek out information. That early love of reading translated to learning the skill set, which ultimately translated to wanting to do more, to attain more skills. So it was a powerful expression of multi-generational work. And in some of our partner states, linking early literacy to whole family success really improved literacy rates, but also improved job attainment after high school, which was a hallmark we found of early literacy success. A kid that can learn to read by 4th grade can learn to succeed by 8th grade and then be successful post-graduation. Those were things that we were finding in the data. So multi-generational success was really something that we started to focus on in the state of Connecticut with our sister states in the region. What was powerful about 2Gen was that it was nonpartisan, that it really did span our current notions of what it was to work together as community. It broke down barriers and it helped us find creative ways to address current needs and whatever situation may confront a community. So cut to today. And what was really exciting about the fact that you linked 2Gen to the building of a community and senior center was that it really told the story of what can happen when leadership understands the power of a concept, in this case, 2Gen. So I'll tell you, in the state of Connecticut, early on in our engagement in 2Gen, we brought in 5 pilot communities to study 2Gen in their own communities. And in one way or another, each community taught us something about 2Gen. For instance, down by the shoreline, one community taught us that grandparents were raising their grandkids and what that meant for a community and for a civic infrastructure of service. Another community taught us that it was very, very difficult for that community to bring its rural participants and inhabitants to the center of town to provide services. So it taught us about the importance of a transportation infrastructure, so to connect parts of Connecticut that were difficult to connect to their towns. It taught us that we needed to find novel and creative ways to bring our communities together that didn't depend on our traditional notions of transportation. In other communities, it taught us that we needed to co-locate some of these services so that, because co-location meant that you really met the need where it was, rather than having your residents go from one end of town to the other to find vital services. And finally, what we found in other communities that have done what I call organic 2Gen, which is what I think you're doing, is that when you built a center that brought together multiple generations in one, the benefit multiplied tangentially. Because what we understood is that when you bring different parts of the community together, innovations start happening. Young people mentored by seniors in a community about novel things such as learning how to navigate life, how to navigate transition, which is what so many of our young people and so many of our seniors are experiencing as well, learning from each other cross-generationally. When you start thinking about how government can work together, you break down the silos and you see some of this cooperation that I'm hearing even on this call today. So what's remarkable is that when you lead with multi-generational values, your infrastructure follows. Now, what does that mean in times of emergency? In times of emergency, when you think in a 2Gen way, that means that you can take your senior and community center and mobilize it immediately. You know where your seniors are. You know what their needs are. You know how to mobilize young people to volunteer, to reach out perhaps. Now these days, perhaps on a call, perhaps on a chat, to reach out and combat some of that isolation that we're seeing in so many of our towns. So the beauty of 2Gen and multi-generational best practice is that it creates an infrastructure so that we are more connected and we are more mutually impacted by the good work that we're doing. So that's the spirit of 2Gen. That's the spirit of multi-generational best practice. And what's exciting is that now that you have this center, you can start thinking about how it is that you wrap all of your infrastructures around your community in one place that is accessible. And, you know, we talk about this pandemic will be over, and it'll be over sooner than not. And the really exciting thing about this opportunity that you have in building this space is that you have a blank slate now for how it is that you use the space to keep your community more connected than ever. The old ways of thinking are out the door. You know, we talked about our new normal, but another thing that we've learned is that throughout this pandemic, there are ways in which we can serve our communities much more effectively and efficiently that are not tied to all the old bureaucratic ways and the disconnected ways that we used to think about. So that's what's really exciting to our mind about what you're doing. Madam Mayor, you know, it was really exciting to see the other day that despite pandemic and despite everything that we're going through, community persists, and the family as the center of gravity for that infrastructure, which is the center of gravity for community and for your town, is really what's going to make the future of Rocky Hill continue to be as exciting as it is. So thank you so much. I really would like to open up the conversation, and just if you have any questions about what we're seeing in other cities, what we're seeing in other states, in this nationwide effort to think multi-generationally, I'd love to think out loud with you.
Okay, wonderful. So I have a few questions, but I'm going to open it up to the counselors. I know Melissa Hicks is with us, the Director of Human Services. I know Michael has spoken with her previously. And so Melissa, perhaps we would start with you. I think you're muted.
Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. Thank you very much. That was very informative. In fact, as a staff with Craig Bowman, the Director of Parks and Rec, and Mary Hogan, the Director of the library here in town, we have met very specifically and recently have another meeting coming up regarding the multi-generational approach and how do we utilize the gift of what seniors have to pass on along with our preschool program. And so that has been an attempt and focus that I know going forward that all parties in Rocky Hill are very interested in that. So that is definitely our focus. And I'm actually jotting down ideas as you're talking and other things we can be doing. So certainly I know that Mimi has assisted us in putting out pretty comprehensive survey, asking seniors for their talents very specifically, time that they can dedicate, whatever they can bring to the table as well to help share with our community. So I think that it's wise, it's helpful, it's definitely the way things are going, and I know a direction that Rocky Hill wants to go in. So we are looking forward to that. So I'm interested to see what anybody else has to say or suggestions moving forward that we can work hard to implement.
You know, what's really exciting about what you're doing, Melissa, is that there is another town in the state of Connecticut. I won't mention it because it's not relevant, but there's another start, or maybe I should, because maybe you can reach across town lines a little bit. The city of Wallingford. Okay. What Wallingford did is under the leadership of Sal Menzo, which is the town superintendent. And this is where you start seeing some of that cross silo work. The superintendent brought together young people in the community and seniors in the community, because what he understood was that there were people who were retired in the community who had skills. They either had trade skills. They had they worked at the insurance companies. They had all these different types of skills that young people are craving. And what he did was he found a way to bring them together. And he partnered with the local college. And what he said was, look, I require only two things: that you honor the multi-generational approach here, but also that you provide a stipend to our seniors, because they are committing not just a public service, but a valuable service that is really needed for young people who want to understand that transition from early life into professional life or work in the trades. So when you look around your town and you see all of the skills that seniors have and you align them with all of the possibilities that young people have, then I really love that you're taking that initiative, Melissa.
Thank you. We're looking forward to it and excited.
Are you done, Melissa?
I am, Mimi. Thank you.
I just was curious too that, do any of the communities that you dealt with, I mean, to me, music is something that's multicultural and multi-generational. That's something we have seniors who have musical talent. We have high school students, obviously, we have young students. Do you have any like recommendations on how that might work?
So thank you so much. So through the commission, we've run an initiative in the last few years called Empathy and Connection Through the Arts. And what we did is that through a multi-generational lens, we linked young people, the youngest, the little ones, the middle school kids, with high schoolers, members of the community, to really through theater work together to talk about difficult things like bullying, multi-generational loss, all of the difficult things that we know young people are experiencing. I love that you bring up the arts, because the arts has been found to be one of a safe, accessible space in which we communicate with each other, we emote, we connect, and we learn valuable skills about life's long success. And these aren't soft, nice to have things. These are important, critically important skill sets that we're developing. So what we've done over the past couple of years is that we worked with an Emmy-nominated producer and writer, and we created this program, this initiative called Empathy and Connection Through the Arts. If you go to our website, you'll find some free resources there, the Commission's website. You'll find we have a practice guide that goes with a musical production, and the practice guide really walks you through some of the foundational skills that young people are gaining just by engaging in this program. The town of Meriden took this on, and what they did is that they actually had their young people produce the play, do all of the background work behind it, do the music, and then have their young people play in the production. And you had community members come from the entire town to come to this production. Why was it important? It wasn't just because kids got to see their friends perform on stage, but it's because the musical itself dealt with very difficult issues that are hard for kids to talk about, but are so much easier when they can talk about them in the context of something else, in the context of something that's bigger than themselves. And also understanding that if they do want to talk about something and need help, there's a trusted adult that they can turn to. So this is just one example of intergenerational arts-based programming that you could do in your town. As I said, there are some resources on our website. It'll give you an explanation of how it is that we did what we did, and also some free links for tools that you may be able to use yourselves.
Councillor Sharma, were you trying to speak earlier?
Yes, I was wondering about the topic of what you could share for us about the topic of motivation or participation rates. I think the idea of the arts might bring more people to the table. But I'm really curious to see that when we mix the multi-generations together, if that will drive up participation.
You know, what's interesting about the multi-generational approach is that there is a component of it that is grounded in civics and civic engagement. And early on, there's an understanding as part of 2Gen is that it not only multiple generations, but that every generation has a stake in what is being accomplished. What that does is it gives from the youngest to the most seasoned participant an understanding that they are doing something for the community together. And that's motivational. That's exciting because young people want to know that they're doing something that is in the context of something bigger than them. Don't we all, however? We all want to do that. So what's exciting is that for a person who has that life's experience, that seasoned experience that they can pass down to another, I want to keep coming to that table. And the young person who sees their own future expressed in the life of a story that's being told or a change that's being made, they want to stay at that table. So civics is a great way to ground that conversation because it teaches you about participation. It shows young people that they are civic actors even at the earliest part of their lives, and that civics takes all forms. It's not just how a bill becomes a law, but how a person touches another person's life to make a better community.
Thank you.
Councillor Dove?
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of questions, but I'll cut it down. I mean, this is a very interesting topic and one that I think we're going to be engaged in for the foreseeable future as we open up the center and then learn as we go. Most of my questions, I guess, are around how do we operationalize the values that you discussed. One thing I just want to toss out there was, how do you get the word out, especially in a town that's of our size, it doesn't have a newspaper. Making sure that there's spreading awareness of our programs is kind of a challenge beyond the core folks who use the center now. And then the second question I have is, you mentioned some big programs, putting on and maybe those are like tentpole or centerpiece programs, like putting on the seasonal play, something like that. But for some people who have information to share, if it's a young person who wants to talk about social media, if it's someone who of any age who wants to talk about photography or cooking or travel, but they might be intimidated getting up in front of, especially people they don't know, what kind of infrastructure can we provide that'll make them feel comfortable in that space and maybe, for lack of a better term, make it like a little more plug and play, so people can say, I'm good at this thing, I could talk about it, but I don't know how to start. So those are my two thoughts. If you could talk about those.
Well, thank you so much for that. One of the elements of what you just described, which is how to feel comfortable in a space, either sharing, teaching, learning, is that firstly, you demystify it. So part of your initiative really should be to demystify relationships and demystify, what it is to give something to someone else that means something, even if it's information. And so I would suggest that you start by, demystifying the public process for your constituencies. And that's for people who may be seniors and children alike. The public process can be very daunting, and it's daunting because we have an outsider's perspective often of what it means to be a public participant. And as each of us on this page know, it's really quite simple. It's relational work. It's people relating to each other, wanting to build something together. And I think when young people, especially because they are new to the public space, understand that their democracy is accessible, then it creates those comfortable spaces for them to want to teach something. And also understanding that they have something valuable that they bring to the table is also critically important, because whatever that skill is, whatever that experience is, whatever that, to learn how to make the perfect grilled cheese sandwich, that is something of value that somebody else can appreciate and learn from. Now, on the communications infrastructure, this is critically important. It is critically important to know where your people are and how they want to be reached and how they want to be communicated with. So what we're doing at the commission is that we are doing an information needs assessment for our 6 constituencies at the state level. Every town, I believe, should do an information needs assessment, and it can have all various levels of formality. It doesn't have to be too complicated, but really reach out and figure out how your people want to hear from you and how they want to communicate with you. That's critically important for two reasons. One, people know you want to hear what they have to say. And two, you create meaningful avenues of informational exchange. And that's so critical because every generation is going to have a different way that it wants to communicate with you. Young people will have their own much more technologically enhanced ways of communicating. People who have been around a little longer and we've gotten used to the way we communicate with each other, we may want to stay with those traditional means of communicating. You don't necessarily need a town newspaper, but the town newspaper as a metaphor, which is it was one space that had different audiences and appealed to different audiences in a variety of ways that were attractive and gathering, that's something that you can accomplish through an information needs assessment of some level.
Thank you.
Those are all your questions, Chris?
I said I'd keep it short.
Okay. Mr. Greenspan?
Mr. Hernandez, if I could just kind of follow up on the comments. What I recognize from my workplace is I tend to be at the 50 plus crowd, and I have an opportunity to work with a lot of people in the 20 something crowd. And that communication divide is a real challenge, not just in the workplace, but when we meet publicly. We hold an event at our new seniors community center. One group's going to be having a conversation and the other group's going to be texting.
Yeah.
And we have to break that divide in a certain way. How does that happen in a multi-generational setting? What's the first steps?
Well, thank you for that. What's really interesting about what we call the Wild West of technology and the Wild West of communicating with each other through device is that, again, it's that mystification. It's that it is so foreign to some of us because it's so different from the way we're used to communicating that we can't even imagine what's on there and what's happening. One thing that some communities have done is that they've actually decided to take over the space, to demystify the space and use it to their advantage, understanding that intermodal communication, different ways of communicating is the way we do things now. And by honoring that at the outset, by communicating to your community, we know that some of you are going to be texting us, and we know that others of you are going to be writing us. Let's figure out how those two things relate to each other. Being open, honest, and inviting about it will help the younger generation feel less insecure about texting during the meeting, and will help some of us who may not be as comfortable with the technology saying, well, maybe I should take a look at that and see if it's something for me. You know, one thing that's remarkable about multi-generational communication is that when there's a reason to learn a way to communicate, whether it's to learn a way to communicate in a place like this, or learned a way to communicate in a place like this, when there's a reason to do it, we are more inclined to want to figure it out. And I think that's what's missing, is that we become very comfortable in our own generational and communicative space. 2-gen and multi-gen allows us to think outside of that comfort zone and find different ways of communicating with each other, which is what's really exciting. It's figuring out novel ways of communicating with each other.
Thank you.
Councillor Prakash.
Hi, thank you for being here and for a very enlightening session here. I wanted to ask you if you can talk a little bit about this construct or this framework, how it can be utilized in our school system. Something like generations like which are obviously level like parents or like grandparents. Talking to children's school, like arranging talks or, just enriching the experience of our students who are in school. Obviously, they get a lot of, value out of the textbook education. but how to enrich that textbook education with like you mentioned, right, like with some trade, knowledge, or like, real life experience from, like, let's say insurance or whatever. I think you mentioned a couple of those things. So in general, like, how can we bring this framework into our school system and utilize it to the fullest extent we can?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. Civics as a concept is really is really a focus for us, for the very reason of the question that you just asked, which is how is it that we not only bring community into the school, but the school into community. So what's happened, and what happened for so long, I come from a culture, for instance, where my mother would drop me off at school fully expecting to not hear anything for the rest of the day about what was happening. She trusted that whatever was happening in the school was the right thing that was going to happen, and she didn't have anything to do with the day. And in fact, the expectation from the school was, drop off your kid, we've got this, come pick them up at the end of the day. That siloing of the experience of community and parenting and the experience of education and learning is an artificial construct. And it's artificial because we know, and anybody who's led a school knows, that stuff that's happening in community is going to come into the school and vice versa. So why not embrace it? And civics is a way to do it. Inviting young people to understand that the school is an expression of their community, and that the walls can be open and the windows can be open, so that that interplay between the day in the school and what's happening all around you is real. So for instance, having them understand that each of you as a professional impacts their day-to-day life, having them understand that their communication with you may actually change the way they are schooled, the way resources are meted out in the school, and then having teachers be an agent of that, having administrators be agents of that intergenerational communication. You know, it's interesting, in the town, one of our other towns in the state of Connecticut, the superintendent there was having trouble with the concept of why his kids were coming into the school day with all of these problems that were happening outside of the school. And he just wanted to find a way to kind of shut the door to the problems that parents were having with each other, that community was having with each other, and just isolate and insulate the children so that they could learn. What he didn't realize is that by trying to insulate children from the community, he was actually creating a tension that was impossible. When he opened the doors of the school into the community and talked to the young people about what was happening in community in a way that respected their opinion, but also helped them understand that they could be agents of change themselves, it completely changed the dynamic. Young people started volunteering. Young people started reaching out to the community to see what they could do to help to make things different. And that's what the multi-generational perspective gives us, is that possibility of linking our efforts across generation, even in schools. Now, this is tough because some schools might say, look, how can we do this? How can we open our doors? We have enough on our plates. Well, the last few months have shown us that when there are meaningful relationships between school, family, and community, then our resilience increases as well.
Wonderful. Anyone else have any comments or questions or inquiries? Well, I thought that was incredibly helpful for us as we start this new adventure. So thank you very much. A lot of takeaways. I do like the demystifying part for the public participation. That is certainly important. And there's all kinds of ways that, you could really imagine the older population and the younger population coming together today, especially since we've gotten rid of the things that we used to learn in elementary school and middle school when I was a kid, right? All of those trades and basic home ec and woodworking, and just ways to bring people together now that will benefit, both groups. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you so much. And just this notion of lifelong teaching and lifelong learning and the importance of cross-generational mentorship is just so powerful. And thank you, Madam Mayor, for all the work that you and the council are doing to have Rocky Hill be an example of what a town can do when it works cross-generationally and cross-silo.
Okay, so I think we're going to have to name it the 2Gen facility or something like that. It's a really catchy thing, right, Melissa? 2Gen programming. All right. Well, thank you, Attorney Hernandez and Mr. Warner. We certainly appreciate your time coming out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Have a great evening.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So let's move on now to our subcommittee reports, and we will begin with finance.
Okay, the Finance Committee did meet. We had a relatively brief meeting, but a couple of good items. The town is on top of our FEMA expense reimbursements. Mona's working hard to get our reimbursements. 2 items related to COVID. The 2019-20 dollar amount that's been submitted, both to FEMA and to the state OPM, is $77,000. The 2021 to date is $249,500. And based on the last storm we had with the tree damage, some fence damage, we are looking for $174,800 to come back to the town. So those are in the works. We just don't know when we'll actually see submissions. On the revenue side, revenue and expenses, we did receive our pilot funds, 100% of the pilot funds for $512,300. We received the first 25% of our ECS grant, $1,252,704, and 100% of our municipal stabilization funds for $65,602. In general, our revenue and expenses are on track. Our tax collection, even with the program we put into place to delay tax collection, we are now slightly ahead of our 3-year average benchmark, so we're doing quite well. Our legal bills are in line with what we expected, and the registrar of voters' wages, which is on the consent agenda this evening. In 2019, the registrar was receiving $16 an hour. 2020, it is $16.50. So we've been asked to approve 2021 and 2022, which required by state statutes, the salaries have to be determined prior to the commencement of their term and set for the entire term. So on the consent agenda for 2021, it'll be $17, and 2022 would be $17.50. We also had an update on MDC, and our water usage charge is going up 3.2%, and the ad valorem tax 3.3%. And again, it's the belief of John Mayer that these are probably the high end of the numbers. They usually have some internal negotiations and bring them down. But that notwithstanding, they'll probably attend a meeting in January. So we will ask Councilor Emanuel to be ready for his updates on the history of the MDC. The other item to mention on finance, the finance department led by John Mayer has once again received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. And I believe that's an award they've received for over 20 years now. So nice job, John and team. And that concludes the finance report.
Wonderful. Well, congratulations, John. I know we don't have our CIP subcommittee on here, but we will show that on our next agenda. Moving on to government operations.
Government operations has not had a meeting since our last town council meeting. We are next scheduled to meet on Monday, December 7th at 6 p.m.
Thank you. And how about public safety?
Gotta unmute, Ed.
That's the danger of putting it on mute. You jump right back. Public Safety did meet earlier this evening, regular scheduled meeting, and we had a presentation from the Department of Transportation to tell us about all the great technologies they have for managing traffic flow off of the different devices they have around our streets, whether they be cameras or pressure pads and all of that. Fire department reported 54 incidents responded to, training hours 390. They did do a live fire drill with connection with Newington. They have 3 cadets in process. They did on October 17th, a drive-by was done for former Fire Chief Joe Kohanek. They successfully went through all their equipment testing, engines 1, 2, 3, along with trucks 1 and 2 successfully underwent their pump testing. We did have to change out, we are going to be required to change out some fire hose that failed. Approximately 1,250 feet failed. Engine 3, truck 1, and truck 2 successfully passed their required aerial ladder testing. The big news, though, is that the training is back up, and they're getting a good training hours in. As for police, let's see. 6 vacancies right now are trying to be filled. They have 4 conditional offers outstanding. So they're hoping to bring all 4 home. And then they have already posted for 2 already certified officers to fill up the remaining 2 slots. And they're looking for 2 already certified officers. There is 1 case of COVID in the police department, and it's our first case since all of this has happened. And it wasn't caught on the job, it was caught through family relations, but they are quarantining and anxious to get back online. There is some concern. There was a past evening where 12 cars were broken into at Stepney Place. So anybody listening that lives at Stepney Place or nearby and is hearing the rumors of a kind of a little crime spree, 12 cars were broken into. All those cars were locked. So the glass was broken and they were rifling through for valuables. So again, lock your cars. It is still difficult to manage the car thefts and speeding that are going on so far this past year. Ambulance and emergency EMS have reported everything is in great shape and that they are up to 81 members strong and feeling good about their department. 306 calls, 3,717 calls year to date for the ambulance and emergency. On December 11th and December 12th, instead of doing, I guess, the Santa Claus Express, due to COVID, what they'll do is they'll set up at Elmridge Park on December 11th and December 12th, and residents can drive through a Winter Wonderland exhibit, and the young ones can meet a Santa Claus at the end of the trail. So that's December 11th and 12th. Ambulance is putting on their Winter Wonderland instead of the Polar Express. Emergency management completed the full redraft of the school emergency planning document. And we unfortunately, due to the rise in COVID, had to reinstate our Emergency Operations Committee meeting, and we'll be meeting to discuss and make sure all departments are good on their inventories of PPE. So we are paying attention to that. And that's it for public safety. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be December 21st at 5:30.
Wonderful. Thank you. Moving on to senior liaison.
Senior liaison did meet. It was a very brief meeting. Really, we were planning for our beam ceremony, which took place, that has our senior center, senior community center on course and is moving forward as scheduled. Our next meeting is November 23rd at 5 p.m.
Thank you. And now land acquisition and farmland preservation.
Sure, we met earlier this evening, and we got a presentation from Ray Carpentino, Economic Development Commissioner, on the Straska Farm planning action plan that the committee will be working on going forward. The actual plan on the final clear out of the site. So we have some steps that were enumerated as to how we can begin to really start to ready the site for the town to take over. So that was exciting, and the committee is looking forward to working on that plan and building it out a little bit more. Ray Carpentino did report that the STEEP grant was successfully awarded to the town. We don't have the funds yet, but that is the money that we will use to erect a barn on the site. It's for the town, it's for the education and all that. And then we did report that the Connecticut Farmland Alliance Pathfinder Award was presented to the town of Rocky Hill for its leading efforts statewide in purchasing and preserving farmland. So we did receive award as a town, initially for the Straska farm, but then Ray Carpentino brought to our attention that with the advent of the initial bond work, a $10 million bond for farmland purchase, development rights purchase, the Backiel farm and the Straska farm bond, Rocky Hill actually is #1 in the state in funding of farmland purchase, to the best of our knowledge. Our next scheduled meeting will be on December 21st at 6:15.
Okay, thank you.
One thing, Ed, you might want to mention. We updated the meeting schedule for 2021, which would give public safety a little bit more time, and also shift over our the Farmland Committee's agenda as well. So that those will be on the fourth Tuesday of the month instead of the existing time.
So we've been running into quite a bit of a problem with public safety being so active that we're unable to get through our agenda on public safety and still have a farmland. So we moved it to the fourth Tuesday of the month, and it'll be at 6 p.m. going forward in 2021. Thank you, Chris.
Okay, so just so you know, the fourth Tuesday at 6:30 on a quarterly basis is a CIP subcommittee. So that one meeting, Chris, you will be running potentially.
We tried to go earlier.
Yeah. Okay. No worries. Okay. Deputy Mayor Sharma, continuing with you, a liaison to the state rep and the state senator.
No reports.
Okay. Moving on to school liaison.
Madam Mayor, no report, no meeting, no reporting at this time.
Thank you. And then finally, economic development subcommittee.
I guess I'll continue the trend. No meeting, no report.
Okay, nice and easy. Okay, let's go on to the consent agenda. Approval Registrar of Voters 2021 and 2022 salary.
I will make a motion to approve the Registrar of Voters 2021-2022 salaries.
Is there a second? Jeff Levine is on mute, but he's seconding. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, everyone is in favor. Wonderful. Moving on to old business, discussion, possible action of the Community and Senior Center.
Thank you. I got a report from Matt from Colliers today stating that the Community Senior Center has all the steel has been erected with the last beam ceremony, bringing that to conclusion. The steel decking has been completed. They're thermal painting the steel structure, and roofing is being installed on the high-pitched steel roofs. Storm structure installation is nearing completion with a bypass of the old system completed. They're going to pour the remaining addition to that slab. I think that donut hole that was in the middle of the multi-purpose room, because they finished up with the storm drain system. Plumbing trench work in the old existing building is ongoing. Electrical outlet and rough has started in selected areas. Framing of exterior walls has started along the interior layout. Exterior sheathing has commenced. Spray foam installation has started, and they did find a pipe underneath the stage in the gym area that needed to be abated for asbestos, and that work has begun. So they look like they're pretty busy over there. But that's it for the senior center.
Okay, thank
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, I have a question on that. John, there was something about the change in color of the facing of the gym, or the rain facing or something. Can you explain how that came about?
I'm not sure.
I guess from the picture or something like that, that looks like there was a different color, a smoke gray.
I don't know whether it's something to do with insulation right now or what. I'm not sure of anything being changed.
Okay, so that just might be the initial coat or something, and because there seemed to be some confusion about it, and I was just curious.
I would just assume, as you're saying, it's like an initial coat for some sort of insulation perhaps, or a primer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business. There we have the award of the Working Lands Alliance Pathfinder Award, which Deputy Mayor Sharma touched on a bit.
Yep. Yeah, the quote in small print is for outstanding achievement in advancing farmland preservation in the state of Connecticut. I wonder where they got that tractor. I didn't see anything that nice at the farm.
You have to really look.
Just a little Photoshop on there.
Did you want to add anything else, John, or we're good?
I think Ed covered it all.
Yeah, okay, good. All right, we'll move on now to the mayor's report. So we already heard that just in terms of the COVID virus, that things are starting to ramp up. So definitely not unique to Rocky Hill. It's happening throughout Connecticut. And so we just want to be very cognizant of the fact that now is the time to implement those personal mitigation strategies, because that's the most important thing that we can be doing as a community for the benefit of the entire community. Remember your 3 W's, wear a mask, wash your hands, and watch your distance. So our health director continues to reiterate the importance of that, and we will all continue to send out those gentle reminders for you. If you have questions, obviously, you can go on to portal.ct.gov. There's lots and lots of data up there. We are currently in phase 2.1. And in terms of reopening, and so that is at the governor's discretion. There was a period of time when Governor Lamont through DPH had set up a system categorizing things on a color-coded map, and sort of this agenda that went along with it, providing guidance and recommendations to municipalities, whom at that time he was giving them the authority to determine whether to roll back from phase 2 to from phase 3 to phase 2. But then a few weeks later, given the spikes that we were witnessing across the state, the governor determined that he would indeed roll the entire state back to phase 2. However, slightly different. So we're at phase 2.1. And that information you can see, we're going to have a chart for you that is very simple to sort of see what's going on with restaurants and everything else. So you can find that on our website. You can definitely find that on the state's website. And that's essentially where we are now. I want to give you a little bit of business update. So November, we dedicated to our small businesses, and that is because on November 28th, every year American Express considers the 28th a national holiday for Shop Small, Shop Local. So we have adopted that here in Rocky Hill for the entire month of November, trying to promote local businesses as best as we can, because we know that these folks are truly the backbone of our community. And it's very important that we make a very conscious and deliberate decision to shop local, particularly as we move into the colder months. And it's going to be difficult for a number of our businesses. So we have partnered the EDC, the Economic Development Department, with the Rocky Hill Chamber of Commerce, and they are providing programming for small business owners. We are also doing promotional activities through social media to promote small businesses. You'll see that we have banners now hanging up reminding folks to shop local. So I encourage all of you to do your best. Think about gift cards during the holiday season, because pretty much everything that we need we can find here in town. One thing I want to touch on very quickly is waste management. So today, the full coalition of the Connecticut Coalition on Sustainable Materials Management met. And as you guys know, we're in what we call a waste crisis right now. It's sort of this silent crisis, they call it. And we really need to start looking at how are we throwing things away into the garbage, because we really want to make sure that we are working towards getting our disposal rates down, and the amount of money that we're paying to get rid of our solid waste, our trash, our recycling, our food scraps. These are things that we're going to be taking a look at in the next couple of months. I want to thank Councilor Thoreau for attending working group meetings with me. There are 4 working groups that make up this coalition. And there's so much information out there. I want to encourage all of you to go on to the state's website. It's the same generic website. You can find everything. It's portal.ct.com portal.ct.gov. So in addition to your COVID updates, you can find stuff on this new coalition. So just very briefly, our next meeting is going to be in December. And at that time, we will have a menu of options as well as the pros and cons. So, what does it look like to use a service like pay to throw, right? What does it look like to have a pilot program where you're, separating food scraps? What does recycling actually look like in 2020? And we will present that to you. We don't have to make a determination now, but it is stuff that we need to be cognizant about, because I do anticipate come January, the commissioner is going to present these options to state lawmakers, and potentially we could be looking at some mandates coming down the road. So we want to make sure that we know what the options are, and the commissioner wants to know, how do we feel about those options? What do we like and what do we dislike? So that's coming up relatively quickly. And then just one more thing in terms of communication. So, we're always trying to improve communications. We have the dedicated COVID-19 page on our town website. We just started a new feature called Mayor Spotlight. And so you can access that through Public Access TV. And also we have a YouTube channel. We need folks to subscribe to the YouTube channel in order to see all kinds of different programming that goes up there. So we need 100 more people to subscribe, and then we can actually get the words Rocky Hill in our link. Right now, it's this crazy link that makes it almost impossible to search it if you wanted to find something. But we will be meeting pretty regularly on the Mayor Spotlight. I'm hoping that Councilor Thoreau and I can talk next about trash and give you a little bit of update. We're gonna call it trash talk. Give you a little bit of update on what's going on, because it really is fascinating. And the last way we're trying to improve communications, we're going to start collecting emails soon. Resident emails. We do have business emails through economic development. But similarly to the way Parks and Rec is able to communicate, when it has a message to get out, we want to be able to do that, especially as we continue through the pandemic. And so one more thing, I just want to take a moment to recognize all of our newly elected officials. Congratulations to Senator Matt Lesser, and congratulations to State Representative Carrie Wood. And equally important, I want to give a huge shout out to our clerk here in Rocky Hill and her staff, as well as our registrar of voters and his staff, because it really was an unprecedented election. Lots of new things, new ways to do stuff, absentee ballots, and they did a heck of a job. So great job, guys. And that's it. And so now I will turn it over to Town Manager for his report.
Thank you. You took away all those good lines to transition over to my MERA letter to follow up on, to continue our talk on waste. At the end of October, I received a letter from MERA where the town brings its solid waste on a weekly basis. The letter more reflects on how they were attempting to raise funds to replace their South Meadows waste to energy facilities, and they were unable to get any state support for that. So they're looking at other alternates that I think the mayor mentioned. They're inviting member towns to join in a Save Money and Reduce Trash, or SMART, demonstration project as a way of reducing the waste being generated by the municipalities. SMART is also known as pay-as-you-throw or unit-based pricing, has been promoted by the DPA as well as DEEP and so on. And it's included in part of the state's solid waste policy. They believe this will lead to significant waste reductions and will help ensure the success of recycling initiatives, including food waste collection and extended producer responsibilities. So this demonstration project is being put on by MERA and Program Administrator Waste Zero, and will direct generators of basically the residents to try to utilize this program to reduce the amount of waste going into these so-called landfills. They're going to utilize a purchase plastic bags program and provide education and encourage public engagement. So we're supposed to be getting a follow-up call from Waste Zero to have a Zoom meeting to discuss these new waste disposal strategies, but we haven't heard from them yet. Another options available for the town, there'd probably be another barrel to have to be rolled out, similar to our pink bag, in which in the month of October, we collected 1,349 pounds of clothes. At the staff meeting on Wednesday, I'll be talking to the departments about following up on some of the health district's recommendations of related to the COVID spike, maybe closing the town hall and have appointment only, as well as looking at people that may be able to do work from home a couple days a week and to reduce the number of people in the departments to prevent the spread of the virus. And as well as also we do have the community center closed due to the construction, so that does reduce quite a bit of traffic and so on. The Parks Department is having a couple events in December. First one is an Ugly Sweater virtual 5K run, in which you can register starting on November 18th. Registrations close November 27th, and you do receive a Ugly Sweater virtual 5K run medal, as well as an Ugly Sweater 5K run sweatshirt. They're also planning to do a couple Christmas themed drive-in at the high school on December 5th. The first one at 4:30 will be Elf, and the second one would be at 7 o'clock, and it's going to be Christmas Vacation. And again, to echo what the mayor said earlier, thanks to the registrar of voters, the poll workers, the absentee ballot counters, and the town and schools custodians for all they did to set up the and run the election on November 3rd. And also thank the town clerk's office for their hard work and making sure the absentee ballot process ran smoothly. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. Right, so we are now on to adjournment. Is there a
Make a
motion?
motion to adjourn.
Okay,
I'll second.
all right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful night.
Good night.
You too.
You
Bye-bye.
too. Good night.
Take care.